Freedom is the right to tell what they do not want to hear. CNN, MSNBC, Fox News. Tired of the same repetitive government narratives? Then wave goodbye to the distractions and rhetoric of corporate media. For this is Anti-Media Radio.
I want to get the language right. The government is in trouble. You're all a bunch of slaves. Bunch of slaves.
What we need in the United States is not violence and lawlessness, but is love and wisdom and compassion toward one another.
What's your definition of me?
And now, here's your host, S.M. Gibson.
My name is S.M. Gibson, and you are listening to Anti-Media Radio. It's January the 5th, 2016. We are at the beginning of a new year. Stuff's already coming at us right and left. We will have a quote-unquote new president-elect this year. Bernie people might as well be Trump people, might as well be Hillary people, might as well be Ted Cruz people. But we'll find out what happens. Joined in the studio with us, as always, tonight is our wonderful producer, Mr. Shannon Madden. Shannon, how are you doing?
What about Vermin Supreme people? How about that?
Vermin Supreme 2016.
Fear the boot.
And joined in the studio by Mr. Kevin Knight as well. Kevin, how are you doing?
Hey, man, I'm doing great. Looking forward to the new year.
So, Shannon, give us... start us off with the headlines here.
Do I have to?
We've got the...
Can't we just talk about wrestling tonight?
We should.
I mean, this is a new year. I think we really need to, like, set a new tone for the show because we got some crap to talk about tonight.
Man. Got the
And the executive order. President Obama tearfully, with tears in his eyes, streaming down his eyes.
Weeping. Never mind that, his drone strikes kill children.
He didn't shed a single tear over that. In fact, I don't think he lost a second's worth of sleep on his fine Egyptian linens. We have an executive order. Gun control is tightening down a little bit in America, according to President Obama. He's pledging that, first off, the gun show loophole will now be closed. That was a really big proponent or big component of this gun control executive order. I don't know. I mean, gun control is really working in places like Chicago right now. So I don't see why. Everybody just needs to just calm down. Let's watch some wrestling. Can we talk about wrestling?
Man, we're watching enough theater, I suppose, with the presidential election right now. That's enough for me. Might as well talk about wrestling if you're going to talk about that. So Kevin, what are your thoughts on the proposed gun legislation? Do you think, okay, that's it, Obama's coming for the guns, or are people overreacting?
No, I mean, depends on who you ask. They're as bad as a lot of people expect it to be. It's not something that we should be really surprised with. He's getting closer and closer to the end of his term. He's not really, other than, of course, sending gun sales through the roof, he's not really made any as drastic attempts as I would expected for him to have done. It doesn't match the rhetoric. I'm sure if he wanted to tomorrow, he would certainly use that phone as pen. But no, I don't think one bit that that they're coming for the guns. This is a long process, and I think they're going to use before we ever see a full-scale confiscation, and I don't think that could even be possible. Afghanistan, those guys are still doing their thing out there and holding off the military, and and they're surely have done a lot of gun confiscation over there with the same idea going forth, and they've not been subjugated as much as we would have to have here. Would have this many gun owners, but no, I'm not afraid. They're not coming for the guns. They will make it harder and harder to get ammunition, to get guns. But I'm not surprised to see him do it. He's got to do it to save face for his audience there and for his record, I guess he sees it as.
One thing that I found interesting in all this too is that $500 million is going towards mental health care. Exactly what that $500 million towards mental health care is actually breaks down to, where that money exactly is going to go, I'm curious to know. Anytime that we have something like an executive order pop up and there is any small little item in there that contains a dollar amount, my red flag immediately goes up. And especially when we're talking about $500 million of taxpayer dollars. I'd be really curious to see where it goes. We actually have an article up on antimedia.org. The wonderful Claire Burnish. She writes, to address the issue of mental health in relation to the ability to purchase firearms, the Obama administration is proposing a new $500 million investment to help engage individuals with serious mental illness and care, improve access to care by increasing service capacity and the behavioral health workforce, and ensure that behavioral health care systems work for everyone. That's we'll see how that plays out, and if that actually does translate to a market drop in these spree shootings that that have been popping up. I don't see where one is going to do much for the other. I mean, it's nice to have more access to mental health care, but you also have to get those people in those situations, get them in the doctor's office, and Dylan Roof comes to mind. I mean, here we see just your normal Southern kid, backwards behavior, the Confederate flag on the jacket, this, that, and the other. But, I mean, is there anything there was there any clear-cut sign there just in that one specific case that either the two of you could think of that kind of was a red flag that, yes, this is what's going to happen. He's going to walk into a church and kill all those people. I mean, I'm sorry. And how is $500 million, let's call it what it is, $500 million. How is any of that amount going to find that kid and put him in the situation to prevent him from having those feelings or having access, legally or illegally, to a weapon to go do something?
And that's the government thinking that it can throw money at a problem and it's going to fix it. I mean, look at, if that was the case, we wouldn't have problems. But, it just ends up being money getting flushed down the toilet. I want to go ahead and bring on our guest for the evening into the conversation and get his thoughts on the Obama gun legislation, among some other things he'd like to talk to us about tonight. The editor-in-chief of the Fifth Column News, Mr. Justin King. Justin, how are you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
Can't complain. Did you have a good New Year?
I did. Just kind of, it was mellow, nothing wild or crazy, but it was fun. What about you guys?
Hectic.
Mine was absolutely wonderful. I got to see the new Star Wars, and not going to give any spoilers on the show, but man, you're not going to believe what happens to Han Solo.
Yeah, mine was pretty rad. I enjoyed mine. Spent time with family, got full. Took a couple days off from work. No complaints. I'm Justin. I'm Kevin, by the way. I don't think we've met. Though I do follow the Fifth Column, and I enjoy your articles, enjoy your work.
Oh, that's awesome.
So, Justin, what's your thoughts and your take on the Obama gavel coming down today?
Tearfully.
Yeah. I don't really see any effectiveness to it at all. I mean, basically, they've defined. It's all a dog and pony show. They went through and they redefined who a dealer is. So basically, and the way it used to work was, if you occasionally sold guns, you could get by with like a curio and relic license or no license at all if you only did it in specific locations. The way they have it now is basically there's going to be a set number of guns you can sell per year before you have to report them. The problem is all of these are unreported. The ATF would literally have to pull surveillance and watch people sell more than the number of guns that they're going to allow. So there's nothing's going to change in that regard. It sounds good and it looks good on paper, but as far as enforcing it, it's almost impossible. And then the mental health thing, I actually have some real issues with that, because you're going to have guys come back from Afghanistan, Iraq, or probably Syria next year, and they'll have their Second Amendment rights taken because they have PTSD. So I'm not a big fan of what I've seen so far.
And, it sounds a bit Alex Jones-ish, I guess, but, that's a way for them to take firearms out of the arms of veterans.
Right.
And a very easy way for them to do it, because they can just throw PTSD on anybody that comes back over from being somewhere they shouldn't be in the first place.
Mm-hmm. It's funny how that works.
Well, they just tried to do the thing with the no-fly list, with the watch list, and if you're on that, then you wouldn't be able to buy a firearm, which you can be put on that for anything. You don't actually have to be a terrorist. I know journalists that are on it.
There's stories of babies being on it accidentally.
You can be a TSA agent and be one of the 70 that actually who appeared on the same list.
You can let people on the flight. You just can't get on the flight yourself.
Right.
Right. And that's the whole thing. Is that, if they have the ability to just say, no, this person can't own a weapon, whether it be by saying, oh, he's crazy, or, oh, he's a terrorist, then it's not a right anymore. It's a privilege.
Yeah, and the
government allows you to do when they want.
Like your driver's license. Yeah.
And with essentially no trial whatsoever. And a lot of people, from my understanding, don't realize they're even on this list until they go to either apply for a gun and are held up, or go for a flight, are suddenly told they can't fly to see their family on Christmas because they're on some list that they've not familiar with, have no reason to understand or to be on, and nobody can probably give them very much information either.
Yeah, so Justin, I know you have some news coming up with the fifth column. Why don't you not let me give any spoilers and you kind of tell everybody what's going on?
We're holding a massive fundraiser. That's give me money. That's the first part of it. What we're trying to do is multiple phases. We're going to take the fifth column into print, radio, and try to basically do an internet TV station 24 hours a day. So they're huge projects, and then therefore there's a huge price tag that goes along with them. These were projects that when we started the fifth column, we didn't think about being able to do this for like 5 years, but we had a good response from our audience. So we thought, well, maybe we can go ahead and start them now. So we put out the fundraiser. We've raised, I don't know, I think there's $400, $500 on the actual fundraising site. And then we had somebody who did not want to go through that. They gave us a bulk sum to do the publishing arm, the print arm. So that is going to come online. And yeah, so that's where we're at. The total sum we need is close to $50,000. So
wow.
It's not your normal, GoFundMe.
Have you reached out to Donald Trump yet?
I had somebody today suggest that I contact George Soros. Like, no, I
He's
don't.
paid like that too. Actually, You can reach out to Kanye West.
I don't know. If Soros has read anything we've written about him, I'm fairly certain he won't give us any money.
I got a point. They can't go to the bushes either.
That's a shame.
Yeah. But it's going well. It's coming in, Ron Paul styles, $2, $3. We've had a couple of, large donations, but most of it is, $5 to $10. And we're just going to keep it open. And as the money comes in to do the various projects, we'll get them online. So, it would definitely help, the anti-media radio station because, with a 24-hour radio station, we need to syndicate content and bring you guys in and rerun your shows.
So tell everybody where they can go if they want to help out. What's the website? What can they do to give a couple of dollars to help support this?
Well, the website is thefifthcolumnnews.com. The easiest way to do it right now is you can go on Facebook or Twitter, #FundTheFifth. And there's memes and links to all of the actual fundraising stuff. And it lets you actually read the plan so you'll know where your money's going and how we plan on accounting for it.
So you're giving complete transparency and you're showing everybody where whatever they donate, where it's going and how that's being put to use.
Right. The only thing that's not going to be in we're going to release them every quarter. The only thing that's not going to be in those are the donor names and the amounts in which the money came in. That's it. Everything else, as far as the expenditures, any expenditure that comes out of that fund will be logged, cataloged, and put online for everybody to see.
That's awesome. And this is actually a really good selling point for Donald Trump to send in some money because nobody will know you sent it in.
Yeah.
And there you go.
Donate with confidence.
All your black market money can not be accounted for.
Fair enough. And it's going for a great cause. And again, that website is thefifthcolumnnews.com. You need to go check it out. Dropping some mad knowledge 24/7 on that site.
So, Justin, while we got you here, Oregon. I've got to get your thoughts on Oregon. Definitely want to bring Kevin into this as well. I know he's got some strong views on it.
I don't know if I'd say strong. I've got some views. But,
Well, I don't, I'm not going to go take over a wildlife reserve and risk getting shot for the cause that they're doing it for. At the same time, I know 6 of the guys that went up there. They're not with the with the more flamboyant individuals there on the bird watching place, but those 6 guys, they really didn't care so much about that current situation involving the arson and the land and all of this stuff. It was more about these guys getting sentenced and then having to go back to prison, having to be resentenced. That, and these are ranchers that are just really tired of the Bureau of Land Management. I would, unless this goes full Waco and a whole bunch of people die, I would imagine we're going to see this over and over and over and over again. That community of ranchers and farmers is really angry. In fact, there's probably going to be another scenario like this play out in Texas in a few months because they passed this pipeline, and both, the Indians and the ranchers are opposed to it, but it's in the oil companies, owning the government. So it went through, and it looks like they're going to try to do the same thing there and stop the pipeline by force.
So do you think that the situation in Oregon, do you think, the standoff will end and, this will happen again in a few months? Or do you think we're going to have kind of a Branch Davidian Waco style thing, like you said, where it's just going to be ongoing for months on end?
Well, from what I can tell, these guys brought their rifle and their ammo, and nothing else. It doesn't look like they have a lot of food, water. This wasn't very well thought out from a military standpoint. If you're going into a situation in which you know you're going to be besieged, you should probably have food, water, and medicine on hand.
They didn't bring snacks.
Yeah. No little batteries in the bunker. Yeah.
Yeah, snacks and toothpaste, basic hygiene products. That's not a sign of a well-organized militant group. So I don't foresee this lasting long.
Unless somebody makes a trip down to the Walmart.
Well, I mean, eventually the FBI is going to raid the place. And they're not going to let anybody in or out, and they're just going to wait for them to get so hungry they come out. I mean, that's what's going to happen. Or somebody's going to do something stupid, and it's going to go loud, and people will start shooting at each other. And from what I've seen, the Branch Davidians trained. That's the reason they were able to kick the crap out of the ATF. They knew what they were doing. I don't see that same level of professionalism from these guys.
Do you think that the feds will allow themselves to be drawn in and we have another Ruby Ridge, Waco type situation where it's, things are extremely questionable?
I think that they'll follow their standard procedures. You read the book, and it says to ring it, cut the power, especially up there as cold as it is. They'll do that, and then all it takes is for, two idiots to meet, one of them wearing a badge, and then they're going to start shooting. So, I mean, it's very possible, and once people start shooting, at that point, it's, an officer gets hit, then, I mean, we all know what happens when somebody shoots a cop. They don't normally make it to trial. So I think I do see the possibility of it going very, very badly. On the upside, for the people inside, they have a couple of, pretty wealthy people with them. And that might, stop them. But
do you think people would take up arms this time, Kevin? If something like that happened up there, do you see Americans going up there in support, or do you see it like previous situations where it just kind of dies off and that's the end of it?
In Ferguson, and I know this is a different situation completely, but what a lot of people miss is that when Ferguson first started, it was generally a peaceful protest. There was a few knuckleheads on a kind of a isolated area that kind of took it a little bit further, but the heavy-handedness from the feds is what ultimately made a lot of this stuff worse. That's what first sent a lot of the Oath Keepers up there, was that people's civil rights were being violated, and we all saw the response. It was pretty heavy at first, but a lot of people got lost in the details. All this information escaped, your day-to-day person who was working and catching up with the headlines. So, that it kicked off, and it kicked off quick, and so that's why you had a lot of people come out in force. Now we're looking at a kind of I don't want to say a different culture, but a different, this is much more a lot more sympathetic to a lot of people on the so-called right than it would be the left. But still, as Justin said, I kind of see it dying out, hopefully, before it even gets to that situation. I did notice right before I left the house, CNN actually had an interview scheduled tonight with one of the leaders of the group, so-called leaders of the group, and they were just informed. The interview was canceled because the group was informed that there were apparently FBI had just processed warrants out for the arrest of several individuals in the group, which they did not name. The quotes, from my understanding, is that the group said that all bets are off, which they weren't very descriptive in that. That kind of sounds like any negotiation that was trying to be negotiating that was trying to be done is probably, at this point, a little fragile, a little bit broken. But I hope it doesn't get much worse than this. But it's kind of hard to say. Who knows? A lot of people responded out there to Bundy Ranch, and I didn't think that many people would come out then. And I don't think the feds are necessarily scared of taking on that group either. I don't think that's why they chose not to force the issue. I think they're going to probably lay back and play smart. But it's a messy situation that goes back. There's a lot of details a lot of people already not know. But like Justin said, I think a lot of people are more upset, not about the fires, not about all the, partially some of the money being paid, but the fact that these guys went to jail and served their crime, their time, and were having to go back. And they're resenting, of course, the argument that these guys are terrorists, which that's an interesting charge, and that's something I don't hear mentioned a lot, is the absurdness of where the terrorism charge actually comes from. And that's the reason why they're having to go back for jail for so long. It wasn't just a simple arson that they were being charged for. It's a terrorism charge. And they claimed that basically in one of the fires, that the Hammonds had built a fire, which they claimed a large fire, using methods that even BLM uses themselves to clear land and to prevent further fires. But they use a method that the BLM claims and the FBI claims and several a group of firefighters. And that in itself is what they use primarily to hang the charge of terrorism on top of arson. Again, noting that the BLM, pretty routinely contributes into doing the same thing that they define as arson, just of course with a badge. But that's where the terrorism charge came from. So it's almost like double jeopardy, but these guys didn't essentially get retried for the same crime. But the terrorism charge on top of it.
So I'm still trying to figure out, where terrorism comes into play. It seems like everybody's a terrorist now.
It is.
The word terrorist is now painted with such a broad stroke.
It is.
It really is.
And the right and both the left have laid they've made their bed, and now they're laying in it because they've each insisted on calling each other terrorists.
And that ties into the gun control legislation as well. You're on the list.
Mm-hmm. And the statute, like the way the statute's written, basically one of these guys during the interview or whatever had to have said that there was some kind of political gripe with BLM. And that's how it got rolled into a terrorism charge. And that's definitely what the guys in the birdhouse right now are going to be facing. Because it's the way it's phrased, it's the use of violence or the threat of violence to achieve a political, religious, or ideological goal, something like that. And if it falls under that, then the crimes become subject to a mandatory minimum, which is what happened to these guys. The judge was like, this mandatory minimum is ridiculous. We're going to give them, a relatively lenient sentence. And then the government came back and said, no, they have to do a minimum of 5 years. And anybody, left or right, knows the mandatory minimum system is
a crock.
Ridiculous. Yes, it absolutely is.
Like, it doesn't matter if you're a guy selling crack in Harlem or, a white-collar criminal. That system is broke because it leads to very unequal prosecution.
And that's why it's kind of surprising that the left is very pointing their finger at this situation.
Right. And they've tried to throw everything out from, oh, well, it's going to be, this is supposed to be native land. And yeah, and if the feds were going to go in there and take that land and give it back to the tribe, I would be all for it. But they're not going to do that. I mean, this is a tribe that has lost almost everything. They're down to, just less than 1,000 acres of land. The feds aren't all of a sudden, becoming sympathetic to the Native American causes. They're just using that as a reason or as a way to rile up the left.
I'm not surprised a bit, to be honest with you, personally, to see that. And when we say left, I'm bad about saying that the left-right paradigm is I don't want to call it an illusion, but it's a false paradigm that we really shouldn't put emphasis on. But nevertheless, it's there. A lot of people that have an opinion about a lot of political situations are going to be a lot of times, unfortunately, on the right or left, or many of them. I won't say all of them, but when you see so many people that reacted that would call themselves conservatives and Republicans, when they all looked at what went on in Ferguson and they all rushed to declare these guys as terrorists, that is when they made their bed, the Republicans and conservatives, and it's time to lay in it. That's what they're getting, and I hate it, but I completely, and it's not right, don't get me wrong, but that's what they get, by calling everybody a terrorist. We even, I hate to say, we even minimize the severity of what we look at from foreign born terrorists and true extremist ideas. Timothy McVeigh, I think, it's hard to argue that I won't get into all the alternative theories about that, but as far as the official story goes, his political aims, he had a vision, he had a view. His views would probably much more line up with what would view my view of a terrorist.
Eric Rudolph comes to mind.
Exactly.
Eric Rudolph, perfect.
Yeah. Right, exactly. But not some guys that are burning down an Arby's or busting out windows, even of a private business. For as horrible as that is, and working for two family businesses, I would be, pretty pissed off and understand. But to call these guys terrorists, no, because you know what? We're going to find yourselves all being labeled terrorists, as we are now. And now, soon, it's going to be everybody.
I mean, it's like, there's all these grown adults and supposed intellectuals that are just like, no, you are. No, you are. No,
exactly.
You are. Like they're on the playground.
Right. Yeah. And the fact of the matter is, and I was in Ferguson. I felt that was a worthy enough cause to go out there and risk getting hurt over.
Surely, yeah.
But I mean, the thing is, politically, like as far as the way the statutes are written, yeah, that was violence to achieve a political end. So, I mean, legally, yeah, that's what it was. But we have to remember that, one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter. And people may be called terrorists today, but, 20 years from now, they won't be. They'll be called heroes.
Or the Attorney General.
Or Nelson Mandela.
The Attorney General, yeah, Eric.
And there's a lot of people that, they poke fun, and I have to admit I do it too, about the target they chose to seize, a birdhouse. I mean, it's
bird sanctuary,
yeah. It seems like an odd target. But when you look at it, it looks to be pretty easily defended. And I think that may have played into their decision to do it there. And we also have to remember that, when, let's say, in the 1700s, when we had our revolution, the first things that were attacked were notary publics, basically. I mean, that's really what was hit first because of the Stamp Act. In Ireland, when they, during the Easter Rising, they started by seizing a post office. So the nature of the building doesn't really matter as much as the meaning behind it. And I think these guys do have a lot of support from rural people that have had to deal with the feds telling them they can't have, they can't collect rainwater. So there's a lot at play, and it's already been propagandized to the point where the lines are drawn, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, if you were in Ferguson, if you supported the people in Ferguson, you should at least have some sympathy for these guys. I mean, like I said, I'm not going up there and getting shot at over it, but I'm not a rancher, I can understand where they're coming from.
I mean, basically, to sum it up, government oversight created this.
Yeah. The government has just, as it has in every way of life, it's overstepped its bounds, and people are beginning to push back. The problem is the media is so good at dividing people up.
I remarked on this as we were preparing for the show. If you Google the, Oregon standoff, the stories that come up from the right and from the left, the headlines are so vastly different. And it's really, it's just like with the gun control thing. The Washington Post talks about the tearful Obama putting his foot down and fighting for justice. And then meanwhile, on the right, you have Fox News talking.
He's coming to get him!
Oh, he's coming to get him, and there's going to be legal action, and already people are planning on suing. And yeah, it's crazy. It really is. And then there's the real story in the middle that a lot of people are looking past.
And we actually did at the FootCon, we did a little survey, if you will, of one of the Washington Post stories and one of the New York Post stories, and how they fed off of each other to separate people. You know, the Washington Post establishes itself and says, well, 980 people were killed by cops, and only 37 were unarmed, you know, and black. This is what they printed. And then the Washington Post, or the New York Post comes on and says, you know, well, this is, you know, see, it shows you the problem isn't that bad. You know, and if these people had just obeyed the law, you know, nothing would have happened. They're all violent criminals. I mean, you know, they really did. They included statistics about how blacks are more violent, while talking about people that were unarmed. I mean, the propaganda is so ingrained that people don't even realize it anymore.
Oh, the numbers are way off on that too. They're so way off. Yeah, I saw your post about that on the face wall.
That was that was unbelievable. I mean, for the news outlet that brought us Woodward and Bernstein,
respected news outlet,
right? To learn to see the latent piece of propaganda, where people weren't counted as unarmed if they had toys. They could be armed with toys, and then they weren't counted as unarmed. And that was I think that might have actually, there might have been more people killed with toys than, you know, plainly unarmed.
Tamir Rice.
But those didn't get counted. I mean, it was horrible.
That's unfortunately the world that we live in now. I mean, and people just are like, yeah, that's what I heard. This is my argument. Especially, you know, when it's coming from the left side, it's always portrayed as more intellectual when it's the exact same propaganda, just from different
the opposite point.
Yeah.
It is. I mean, that's what they do. They narrowly define the field. So you can either be, you know, you can either say Mike Brown was a thug and deserved what he got, or you can say he was an innocent young boy.
And that's how it's painted. It's one or the other.
The facts are, he wasn't an innocent young boy, but he also didn't deserve to get shot dead in the street. You know, there are, you know, they create that false dichotomy, and everybody feeds into it, and that's what's going on here in Oregon. You know, they're either terrorists or they're freedom fighters. They're people that are angry. I mean, they're mad.
But do we have
they have legitimate rights?
Any topic in this country? Is there any issue left that isn't? It's one or the other.
Alabama football. Roll Tide.
No, I think we're pretty well. They've got everything lined up.
Tap out.
So yeah,
your political party can tell you which one to vote for and how to support it. And by the end of the day, it doesn't matter, because the end result is that you're going to lose your rights.
Both ways, and nobody seems to get that at all. But Bernie cares so much. He's just old, and he just really cares, and he's going to fix everything.
And he really wants to audit the Fed.
He really wants to audit the Fed.
Never mind. Never mind.
Forget what he did before. Yeah, forget all that. That never happened.
Yeah, strike the record clean.
Yeah.
And he's going to make America great again.
Oh, yeah, he's not going to bankrupt us. I don't know what you're talking about.
And yeah, and they do that with Bernie from the left, and they do that with Trump from the right. Like,
the Trump ones are way more entertaining, I'll say that.
Yeah, I am amazed. In fact, if I have time tonight, I'm going to write something about it. But I'm just amazed how a man that has consistently given thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars to Democratic candidates is all of a sudden a Republican poster boy. Like, it blows my mind.
He can do anything. It's the most, I mean, I've talked about this at length multiple times on air and off air. Any other candidate ever would have been gone
Oh,
long time ago.
Yeah. But he's a businessman.
And the
That's what we need to
crazier
bring
he
America
gets,
great again.
the bigger his numbers get. It's insane. It's
Doesn't
like
matter how
Bizarro
many
world.
bankruptcies, doesn't matter how many ex-wives, doesn't
Yeah.
matter how many times he uses the N-word.
A huge scandal could break about him tomorrow. He would
Both middle
shrug it
fingers,
off,
yeah.
and his numbers would go up.
Did you hear Jay's question? He got asked about about Ted Cruz running for president. He was asked, and now he's kind of wading into the whether or not Ted Cruz is actually
Pull the trigger. Who
American
cares?
citizen.
Let him do it.
Right. Oh no, but I'm not surprised that he would.
No.
Of course, I will. In his defense, he was asked the question, so he did answer it. But I can imagine we're going to see some more antics out of Donald Trump here in the next few days. They're going to be concerning that. It's going to add a new twist to our criticism of him for sure.
Hey, odd question here, and this is kind of on topic of getting, off on the bunny trail a little bit. Who is Trump's running mate? Who do you think Trump's running mate's going to be?
Jeez, I no idea.
Because, this is pretty much his race to lose, at least on the GOP side.
He would do something crazy like make it his daughter. He would do something nuts.
Yeah, I have no idea who it would be, and I can't even. I don't know of any Republican candidate because Trump. I do believe that Trump will lose, like in the general election. So I don't know any Republican candidate that's silly enough to tie themselves to that wagon.
At the same time, though, we're talking about the office of vice presidency. That is, if it's actually, we've gone this far with it, and it actually is a possibility, don't you think somebody's crazy enough to, it is the chair vice president, why not?
Maybe Sarah Palin.
Oh, that is a dream ticket right there. Sarah Palin, Donald Trump, come on.
Can you imagine the stand-up comedy routines that would pop up and the fuel it would fire just for many of them?
Well, and that is kind of a even matchup, though, because Donald Trump could make a sexist remark to her and she'll just laugh it off.
Because she probably won't understand it.
Of course. Yeah, it might actually work out.
She make them in their stone. There was new talk of making them a couple of ways in a couple of different places. I guess because they didn't expect her to make the statement about medical marijuana when she dismissed the idea that cannabis or medical marijuana in Alaska, or anywhere for that matter, is any big deal. She brushed it off, and of course, I'm sure there were plenty of Tea Party types that just completely shrieked at the idea of that. But I, for one, was a little surprised to hear her actually make the claim.
Well, Alaska's a green state, man.
Right. Well, she didn't have to make it, but the fact that she did actually make it, so thought a little bit interesting. But then again,
Let's make America great.
She's probably trying to find anything to keep her name. It's been a while since we've heard that name in the
Yeah,
papers.
but Trump and Palin, that is just a dream ticket.
It would,
particularly for the Democrats, But man, I don't
think
see
they'd
how
get
that.
steamrolled. Unfortunately,
I don't see how
I wouldn't
that
support
ticket
it,
could lose. I really don't.
yeah.
It's awesome. Just the implication of that.
I think that there are a lot of skeletons in Trump's closet that may come out in the general election that he may not be able to.
I feel that's Trump's advantage.
How is that going to hurt?
Public
How is
eye.
that going to hurt in any way, shape, or form?
I feel like he's been in the public eye so long, and he's been such a public figure, and he's made so many people mad through the years that I feel like we know most everything.
if there's a
Maybe
Ted
we
Hooker
don't.
story come up, doesn't that make logical sense? This is Donald Trump.
Hey man, it was a business decision, and he's a businessman.
That's
He
right.
talked his way out of it.
Oh, right.
All right. Well, I'll give you one that will strike to the heart of his base. We have to remember that Donald Trump, who mocked Kerry, who actually went there, made sure that he had his deferments in order to stay out of the draft.
Yeah, that's not been mentioned. I was aware of that.
I'm telling
but
you,
that's
he'll get
not
out
been
of it.
mentioned.
He'll get out of it. He'll
Yeah.
talk his way out of it.
Oh, he definitely will. But he took a small bit when he bashed McCain not too long ago. He there was a little bit of mention. A few people kind of irked at that, and you would have thought the way that that he'd been more of that. But yeah, you're right, Justin. I think if anything, that would probably be the scandal. Unfortunately, that would be the scandal that people would be most concerned about.
I think he'll talk his way out of it.
Oh, he probably will. He's definitely going to talk regardless.
Well, and military experience is kind of, we have a president now who doesn't have a military record. And that's kind of, I don't know, that's kind of the new norm. It seems like I was having a conversation with somebody about that the other day. The fact that we don't have a general or somebody who came up, battle tested and trained and put through the military system.
If the president actually dictated foreign policy and dictated the military, I would say that probably would have a little bit of bearing. But considering the disconnect that I personally believe that there is between,
bingo,
I don't see it being. To me, it doesn't really matter. They're all admittedly
and that's why I don't think this is really going to hurt Trump when this finally does come up, and it already has come up.
Think about all the women Clinton talked his way out of.
Oh yeah,
or
Trump can do it.
Trump can own them all.
If Trump can talk his way out of having watch list for a group of people, which he talked his way out of, then why couldn't he talk his way out of, I avoided the draft?
Yeah. That's disgusting you would even bring that up.
He raped that woman, Hillary.
Yeah.
Did you hear he was asked about that, about what they thought about Bill Clinton, about comparing, Trump was asked about Bill Clinton and comparing it to, his response was, well, I don't know, why don't you go ask Bill Clinton? And it's funny because it almost, the way the question was set up, or if media does what media does and goes to ask Clinton, they were asking which one was worse. How do they compare? Do they compare? Were they wrong? Do they condemn him? You're asking if he condemned Bill Clinton and how it all measured up. But if Bill Clinton, and of course Bill's fixing to pop back up again because of his pedo buddy Island and that whole case, which is gonna shine a little bit of light on Hillary. But at this point, do you guys think, regardless of who's going to be the Republican candidate, do y'all see Hillary actually beating or getting smashed?
I think the left is going to crush Hillary because of her husband. I think all that's going to come back up.
But they've always gone with the...
I don't know. I think it's already starting. The whispers are starting. Hillary Clinton has a lot of enemies. It's the one thing they can hang their hat on with her.
Bernie's got a lot of grassroots support.
Yeah, a lot of people
I don't think it's as much about Bernie Sanders as it is about destroying Hillary Clinton.
I don't
think Bernie Sanders is relevant. He's just the guy that's going to get it over.
Bernie has a lot better chance of capturing moderate voters than Hillary does. Hillary's very divisive. Has a very long.
She's not. People do not like her.
Right.
At all.
Yeah, and I think the Democrats are smart enough to know that if Trump does get the nomination, they have to present a moderate.
They have to get the moderate vote. That's the only way that they're going to stand any chance of defeating Trump.
I feel like he would destroy her. I'm the only one that thinks that. She's the only woman he can get away with talking to the way he'll talk to her.
Oh, yeah.
She's the only one. If he said it to any other woman, he would come across as sexist and this horrible man. But because it's Hillary Clinton and she's so unlikable, people will like that he's talking to her.
It'll be the only debate,
and it's going to backfire that they run him against.
The only debate in American history where basically all he has to do is just say "you're so fat" jokes. That's it. The whole entire debate on his side just needs to be "you're so fat" and "you're so."
He might as well.
He might as well. And you can watch his numbers will improve throughout the whole entire broadcast.
Well, people will allow him to talk to her like that because, I mean, let's be honest. Out of the two, Hillary's got more balls. I mean, so I don't like her.
But it's not perceived. Trump is perceived as this modern John Wayne character. He's going to build the wall and he's going to take care of business.
There's going to be some people that you mentioned that steamrolling Clinton. There's going to be some people, and I particularly a large amount. The closer we get towards the election, the more buzz that gets heard, and who's not heard of Trump. But when these sound bites keep coming out of him attacking Clinton, yeah, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to jump on that. And simply, if they couldn't tell you anything about what Donald Trump has stood for other than his "Make America Great" plan, they're going to tell you that they enjoy what he told Hillary Clinton, or they're going to be able to recount when they heard him verbally smack down Hillary Clinton. So he's going to bring some people at that point. And if there people are
Donald Trump has the audacity to bring some woman that Bill Clinton has raped up on stage. I think he would do it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
I think I think he would go there.
And if you're on board, if you're not on board with Trump now, you're probably not going to be. But if you're still on board with Trump at this point, you're on board for the sinking ship.
Yeah, that's
whichever way it goes.
And this is the same guy that was on TV 3 years ago talking about where's his birth certificate. I think he would go to any extreme.
Let me ask you this. Do you think that it would matter that when he attacks, the Clintons, that eventually somebody's going to point out that he gave $100,000 to their foundation?
It's business.
Yeah, it's business. He'll say he buys politicians. Yeah, he'll say he goes, I bought Republicans, I bought Democrats, and it'll make him look stronger.
And that's exactly what his base can't explain to you, couldn't tell you who the Clinton Foundation or what it does or who it is, or even the money or even much about his other business dealings, but will argue that sometimes in business that's what you got to do.
Got to reach across the aisle.
You do, right?
Yeah.
God, that logic blows my mind.
Yeah, well, us too.
He'll make himself look like Ronald Reagan reaching across the aisle to get a deal done. People have drank the Kool-Aid and they will eat it up.
And I keep hearing the same, and I've heard this argument a few times from people that keep wanting to go back to this tired, which is relevant, but I thought they want to use it, that who has not changed their mind? When you bring up the point that he has been a lifelong Democrat.
Reagan was a Democrat.
Oh, of course.
Ronald Reagan was a Democrat. That's what you're going to hear.
Right.
That's the excuse.
And they'll say, well, who was not a Democrat and came and changed their ways? They want to add
people have justified it in their mind. I like everything you can think of. There's a justification for it.
God, it blows my mind that he can actually stand up there and say, I bought politicians to get laws that favored me passed.
And say what you will for Rand Paul, he's at the end of the stage screaming all this stuff at the top of his lungs, and they're just like, stupid Rand Paul, shut up.
And I mean, basically all we're doing is cutting out the middleman. We're saving him money so he doesn't have to pay off the politicians. He can just do it himself.
I said this all along. Corporate America has influenced politics so much that now corporate America has stepped into the arena, and it's going to be president.
And people are voting.
Cut out the middleman. Yeah, that's how you save money. That's the art of the deal.
You should be the next man.
We're so screwed.
Oh, yeah, it's over. It's over. Like, there's no alternative here. I don't see anybody and go, yeah, I think they'll be better than Obama. Like, Obama's been horrible. And I don't see anybody go, that's a step up.
Yeah. I think Rand Paul.
I think he'd be a step up.
As naive as he is, I think he might be all right. But again, I don't even like him.
Right. I do think Rand would be a step up from Obama. He's the only one I can say that for. John Kasich would be really funny to watch yell at people, but we'd be doomed.
I like Rand Paul if he weren't such a GOP ass kisser. He's really had his nose up there and made sure that he's had all the sound bites with the GOP, Republican, liberal, all of these divisive terms and praying at the altar of the GOP because he knows where his money comes from.
Let me ask you real quick. If Rand were to find himself, that's a big if. If Rand were to find himself in president, do you feel like that at least liberty, and there's where, who knows, everybody you got different opinions on what liberty constitutes and what it means. I personally cannot argue the fact, and I get this from a lot of hardcore libertarians, that you cannot advocate that Rand Paul being in office would not do any good, that he's a sellout, he's done this, he's kissed butt for the GOP, which I'm aware, we're all aware. He's not his father. But I'm of the belief that we didn't get here overnight. We're not going to get back to a better place overnight. And I don't think anybody can tell me that if Rand Paul was actually elected, that we would see more bad, bigger government, which it's going to happen either way. But I can't help but see that there would be at least it wouldn't even be necessarily a decline in government, but even a lessening of the speed of government.
But did we sign up to be on life support, or did we say, you know what, when we're in a coma, somebody needs to pull the plug? And to be honest with you, somebody that's going to get in office through there to, keep you alive for a few months longer, a few years, decades, whatever. I think Donald Trump may be the answer, in all honesty, because I feel like he's going to be in there and he'll just pull the cord. It'll all be burnt to the ground, and we'll have to start with something different.
That's actually the most logical argument I've heard for voting for Donald Trump, is that he is a Molotov cocktail to the White House. That basically he will be so absurd that people will have to realize how bad our government has gotten.
There's part of me that believes that's the actual answer. It will just be like both middle fingers up. Let's see what happens.
But do you honestly think the system would have just allowed him to go in and run amok? I'm sure the GOP is going to have some sort of fail-safe.
It will be a freak show every single day. His face will be on camera every day, stirring something up. Every single day, there will be a
reality TV show.
Yeah.
And I definitely think that. I've said it before. I'll say it again. I do believe that Donald Trump is actually the biggest threat to our national security that we have. But at the same time, I'm not real happy with the state of the nation, so I'm not sure that I care. I do believe that he's got this base, this because he has this bizarre cult of personality. He has this base that might force the other politicians to allow him to, just go buck wild. And in that case, maybe what we need is for a wall on the border and having, ICE check everybody's ID to make sure they're U.S. citizens everywhere they go. And, all of this stuff. Maybe we need that just to wake people up. It's horrible, but at this point, I don't know if anything less drastic is going to do it.
The same argument was a little bit, though, is probably, I think I've heard it a time or two about Obama, that if anything, Obama woke Americans up to what we've got. That he was so bad that he woke Americans up to what we've got. But then look what Americans, the alternative, like what they're doing.
We keep going for like a 10-yard gain every time.
Yeah,
and I think Donald Trump is the Hail Mary down the field. Let's get the touchdown and get off the field and be done with it.
You and Christopher Cantwell would be homies.
Oh, no, we wouldn't.
No, I know. I know how you feel about it. So that's already.
He blocked me the other day. He unfriended me on Facebook.
Oh, that's a shame.
Oh, damn. Yeah. No helicopter rides for you, huh?
Yeah, I guess not.
Well, we're still friends on Facebook, Justin, and we really appreciate you calling in tonight.
Anytime. I love it.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Good luck with everything with the Fifth Column News. On the 5th, look it up, and we will be talking to you soon, Justin, and I hope you have a very successful and good 2016.
Thank you. You guys too.
Yes, sir.
Take care, man.
See you, buddy.
Bye.
So, just got a couple of minutes here. You got any parting words for us tonight, Shane?
I'm still voting for Vermin Supreme.
Supreme.
There's no two ways around it. I don't know if he's there was a possibility of Vermin Supreme D's Nuts split ticket. I don't know exactly if that's.
I think D's Nuts is down in the polls.
Perhaps, yeah.
He's not been able to do a lot of campaigning, with high school being.
Yeah, he had homework.
Right.
I think we need to bend the rules a little bit. We've bent the rules for Ted Cruz. He's made it this far.
We've bent the rules for a lot of people.
Yes, we have.
Where's
your birth certificate?
Man, where is my birth certificate? I don't know.
I got to get mine. I've got to get a passport.
So you can,
if anybody wants to get on an airplane this year, need to check into that.
I think everybody's going to be really excited and move to Canada if Trump wins. But see, I think it's going to backfire on because Trump's going to just annex Canada. That's it for us tonight. Thank you so much.
Pay for it.
We'll be back on Thursday. Oh, they will be paying for it. There's no doubt about that. Thank you for listening to Anti-Media Radio. This is your host, SM Gibson. Anti-Media out.
Peace.
Hello.
I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo.